Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Shantae. In the last part we cleared the first dungeon and now we're actually back in Watertown to do one thing really quick. You might remember we got those Warp Squids. Well, now we're gonna put them to use. In every town there is a Warp Squid hut like this, where you can turn in 4 Warp Squids of any color as far as I'm aware. They don't even have to be the same color as each other as far as I can tell. And upon doing so, the Mother Squid will teach you a dance, which is the teleport dance to that specific town. So now when we're dancing, we press down, up, left, right, BA. And with the dancing mechanic, we will teleport to here. And now, back in Scarecrow Fields, because I'm on my way back to Scuttletown, I can get this heart container we saw earlier. And now I do another really big grind. I maxed out my supply of Vanishing Creams and Pike Balls, also by a maximum amount of Storm Puffs. And now we're actually back in Naga Fields. Or Naga Wasteland, or whatever the hell this place is called. Because now that we have the monkey, we can actually progress past the part where we got the heart holder earlier. Though I wouldn't recommend playing this section as Shantae, I'd actually recommend the monkey. By the way, spikes are still instant kill. So, yeah. Everywhere I go, they do that. In Shantae, in Castlevania, and, well, Mega Man, obviously. Though I'm just grateful Drill Man in Battle Network 3 was not instant kill. That would have been dickish. Oh boy. Areas like this are why I have the Vanishing Cream maxed out, because this thing is obscene. As for what the Storm Puffs do, I'm actually not entirely sure. I don't think I've actually ever used them. Well, that was one really well-timed cut tonight there, wasn't it? The other item that I got back in Watertown, the little, what looks to be, Ice Slasher from Mega Man Classic 1, although only red. What that does, that Shantae will fire 3 of those out in front of her. Pretty good against certain enemies, actually. Did not mean to use that. Oh, well, it's not like I have 97 more of them. And now, welcome to the Ladies' Desert. First off, it's here that I'd like to mention that all the upgrades that we got in the last town, the little technique upgrades like the kick flip kick, drill kick, and all the others, they also do different damage amounts, which is very noticeable when you're against late game enemies like this. Also, if I recall correctly, no, not recall correctly, the worm enemies here actually remind me a lot of Zelda 2 because of the weird worm enemies you can encounter in the deserts. Also, cactuses do hurt you, so watch out for that. There is no way to get rid of them either, at least as far as I can remember. By the way, I should mention, I started this game off blind, but since then I actually have done a test playthrough of pretty much the rest of the game. And welcome to the next town, which I actually already cut to in daytime, Oasis Town. Let's show off the new stuff first. This place's minigame is the Gecko minigame. This is a very simple thing on a very simple concept on paper, but doing it well is an entirely different beast. If you're gonna want to use this for money grinding, I recommend using save states, especially if you're on the 3DS eShop. The way this works is that you gotta have the dice at the top. For your Gecko to rise higher until you reaches. Your overall goal is to have your Gecko reach the bell at the top. The way you raise it is by getting a higher number than your opponent. If they get a higher one than you, they raise. Though admittedly, it is in your best interest to have it raise overall, because if you let it raise to the top for both of them, you get the most gems, if I recall correctly. You can get a lot more gems out of this in one playthrough than you can out of the entirety of the dance game, but it's just better for us to do this. Also, it's weird. B is the talk button in the actual town map, but it's A to move faster in the town map as opposed to B in anywhere else, really. And now I'm here in the item shop because I do want to pick up some things. Namely, I want to buy about 4 or 5 Twin Mint sets. The Twin Mints, they're actually some of my favorite items to use in the game. They double your attack power, so it's very useful. I recommend getting at least 4 or 5 sets of these, so it's 20 to 25. It's overall useful. Also, one little detail I like is that when you get the upgrades from Watertown, they actually start showing up on her pause screen model, her sprite. And now we're going to go into Skye's hatchery for plot. Love the animation on her clothes, by the way. What are you doing in Oasis Town? Hey, Shantae, I sold my warbird, so I'm here on an egg hunt. As you can see, I've got some new trainees to keep me company. What do you think? Great, but I don't see Wrench around. You didn't sell him, did you? Of course not. I'd never part with him, would I, Wrench? Caw! I'm sorry for your ears. So how's the genie business? You still playing Watchdog for that dinky fishing hole? Scuttletown's no hole. Besides, right now, it's turning up more action than any place. Which reminds me, I'm searching for something called the Golem Stone. Ever hear of it? Nope, but there's a place called the Golem Mine a few miles into the desert. Could be some connection. I'll show you where exactly, but I need to tend to these eggs. Would you like me to send Wrench to the scout for you? Would you? That'd be perfect. Find the mine, Wrench. Go. Just head for the desert and keep your eyes open for Wrench. In the meantime, I'll ask around for my messenger birds. Deal? Deal. Thanks, Skye. Bye. And now I'm actually going to cut back a couple of areas because that ladder I entered from in the Naga Wasteland to get to the desert in the first place, yeah, I'm back here. Because the next dungeon is just a couple screens left of this. Vanishing Cream's really good here. And with that, welcome to the Man's Desert, which is pretty much the same as the last desert, only the enemies are now male. And I think do a bit more damage or have a different attack pattern. Either way, the kick to the face will destroy them all. Also, I like how all enemies shoot out the exact same bones upon death. Who knew? Every creature in the universe is just the same bone structure in a slightly different order. What's really sad is that was probably some sort of scientific theory at some point, way back before science was probably even a word. Human history's weird. And here we are. Wrench, there you are. Can you help me get into this place? I'm fresh out of ideas. Caw-caw! Well, this is just a heart-wrenching sight. My puns are terrible, and I feel terrible, but still. Yeah, well, they gave him a very blatant name, to say the least. I think he does the same thing in the later games, too, at some point. Now, we can enter the next labyrinth, but first I want to head over here to the left, because there's a save point over here. And save points are always good. Okay, now we can enter the temple. Or labyrinth. I call them temples accidentally. I'll probably call them temples a lot just because I'm so used to Zelda games. Speaking of which, 4 days until Majora's Mask 3D. Yes! Mind you, by the time this gets uploaded, I probably will have beaten the 3DS version at least 5-6 times. I find it weird too because it's being released right before my February break, and February break of last year is when I really started playing Majora's Mask a lot more than I used to. Don't get me wrong, it was my favorite Zelda game for a long time, but it was like maybe a once-a-year game, whereas now, let's put it like this. 2014, I played the game about 8 times, which is about 20 hours per playthrough, so that's about 160 hours of my life dedicated to that alone. Well, mind you, it wasn't exactly once per year before that. I played it a lot because I'm saving special playthrough number 30 for the 3DS version, but yeah, let's see, 30 times 20. About 600 hours of my life dedicated to that game, which is pretty sad. Oh boy. And when that 3DS version comes out, that's gonna skyrocket. Anyway, now we can finally talk about what stuff that's happening on screen. Most of this labyrinth is centered around this elevator. So you're gonna want to keep this thing in mind because a lot of the stuff you're gonna be doing involves it. And of course, there's a warp squid hidden in the wall. You know, areas like this never really made sense to me in context of the real world. Because for a screen, yeah, we get it. There's stuff in the foreground because there's stuff in the foreground so we can't see it. But from the character's perspective, there's just an empty hole there that she's deciding not to enter. Meh. Anyway, the way this dungeon's true gimmick is magnetism. You step into these little lights, and you get magnetized to red or blue, north or south. The same color is repelled, the opposite color is attracted. It's actually very similar to Mino Magnus' stage from 04. So you're just gonna need to keep your color in mind, and you do for the puzzles at least, because it involves them quite a bit. Also, Shantae in full red reminds me of something, but I can't quite place what. It's the hair, too. Weird. Oh, it reminds me of Ruby because of Pyrrha. That's right. Anyway, we got a key there because that guy was a chest that was alive, which is kind of morbid, but okay. Next up, we want to head up a bit because the next place we want to go is down on this floor. I hate this room. Unless you use Vanishing Cream, I swear it's impossible to not get hit in. Unless you just abuse the dash attack a lot. Which, mind you, is a very viable option because it is a really good attack. Not the best for bosses, though. Or huge enemies like this rock monster who reminds me a lot of, for some reason, the shit monster from Dogma. That movie's ridiculous and I love it for it. Then again, I just love ridiculous movies because they're so funny. You're talking to a guy who has fanboys in his top 3 movies. Or, yeah, you're not talking to me, you're just listening to me. Ramble on over video games. Clearly I've made some excellent life choices. No, I'm joking, I actually really love doing this. Though by the time this gets uploaded, we will have passed 600 videos, which is, pretty weird to think about. That means 600 videos plus have been rendered on this damn laptop of mine. Oh yeah, that's right. I don't use a desktop computer. I use a laptop for everything. I'm surprised it hasn't. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to jinx anything. Never mind. Anyway, for this part kind of tricked me up my first playthrough because I didn't realize there was a hidden passage above there. Because you need to keep your red polarity that you get from here. How anyone was supposed to figure this out without a map? Well, actually, there is experimentation, I suppose. Back in the days when experimentation was a very common thing in video games, mind you, whereas nowadays there's just like 70 Call of Duties and whatever. That's why I stick with the Nintendo people instead of just going right to Sony, because a lot of Nintendo stuff tends to be safe and original, at least. And overall fun. Whereas Xbox, well, I've never owned an Xbox system in my life, so what does that say? Other than the fact I'm a Sony Nintendo fanboy. Shut up. Although, it's kind of weird. I'm a Sony fan, but at the same time, I was actually never a really big Crash Bandicoot fan. Don't get me wrong, I find them to be good games, but I don't see the big appeal. Although I will admit, I love Crash 2 quite a bit. Mind you, I didn't grow up with it. I didn't play it until around 2008, but still. I at least found that one fairly fun to play through. Whereas 1 and 3 were just kind of tedious to me. Maybe it's an acquired taste thing. Anyway, we got another captured genie here, so you can probably tell that we're gonna get another transformation dance. Also, I just now realized that these genies pretty much just have a slightly altered Shantae sprite, huh? As for what this dance is, well, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room and say that it is, in fact, well, the elephant. I actually didn't even mean to make that elephant comparison there. Sorry about that. The elephant is the strongest in terms of pure attack power, I believe. By the way, if you're wondering why I suddenly am now a monkey, it's because I need the monkey here. The elephant is the slowest, but I believe the strongest in terms of pure attack power. As for what it has for attacks at this point, it only really has a dash attack, which you can use to break certain obstacles. But it'll get better later on. And now we need to go back all the way through this corridor. Yay! Admittedly, though, this can be kind of tricky if you're not paying attention, because you might not realize you can now jump through that. Because there was a either a closable door or a one-way platform in there. Either way, with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 4, we'll be continuing on in the Golem Mine to see what we can find in this labyrinth. See you guys then.